We started into a little mini-series this past week about taking God's Word to show us how not to be self-centered. And we actually went to the center of the Bible, which is Psalm 118, verses 8 and 9. It shares with us it's better to take refuge in the Lord than to put our confidence in man. And so we went through a couple points talking about the fact that we can count on God in times of trouble, and that we can count on God when it seems like there's no one else to count on. But we had to start with the fact that we have to realize first that God is on our side. And so I challenge each one of you to talk to God and have a conversation with Him, because many times we don't allow God to work through us because we think, well, it's a big God and I got all these problems, and really does it even matter to Him? But if we don't turn to God in those small times, then we're not going to turn to God in those big times, because we want to try and fix things ourselves. So naturally, of course, on Monday morning, I had to have a conversation with God, because the first thing that happened was my son, on his way to school, got in a car accident. And it's his senior year, and it's the first one. Lord willing, it's the last one as well. But it's on I-77, rush hour traffic, all that stuff, going north on 77-8, all that, when you're going up toward, he goes to Walsh Jesuit High School. And so at 7:30 in the morning, actually it's a little bit earlier than that, I'm heading out the door to go out to get him, and not to just meet him, but I have to go meet the police officers at a Dairy Queen, which sounds pretty good, right? Hey, good, we get to go to Dairy Queen, but Dairy Queen's not open at 7:30 and 8 in the morning. So we get over there, and then I have to take him to school now, because they actually have to tow the car away. They tow the car away, then we have to drive up to Walsh Jesuit, we have to drop him off. And he was doing okay, and he was fine, and things like that. And then I get back, and all the other things kick in from that. Now, I had an appointment with this guy, and this was the fourth straight Monday that I had an appointment with him, and I had to cancel because of different things that had taken place. But thankfully, I remember the message that I'd just spoken on the day before, and so I'm like, okay, since this is going on, I'm going to have a conversation with God. So I'm like, hey God, whatever's happening here is happening for a reason. I'm just going to trust you through it. Let's have this conversation. And so obviously then, since I've talked to him, now the rest of the day is going to go perfect, right? I shouldn't have any other issues. Everything should be good. So I have to cancel with this guy for the fourth straight time, and then I get back, and the first place I have to call is my insurance place, and they go, you got to do this, you got to do this, and go through all the different stuff. And so they direct me to the tow yard. And just so that you know, if you ever get in an accident, you don't just get to use like AAA and say, hey, show up and, I'll meet you there, and then take the car to here, whatever it might be. They have to get the car off of the expressway, interstate road. And so they take it to a place to get it towed, and then they have their own tow yard. So I called them up and said, hey, I just want to pick the car up. I didn't realize that it's technically being impounded, and so now that costs you money to have to get that out. And they're like, if you have it out by this time, it's going to be this amount, but if you don't get it out until tomorrow, we add this much, because we're not a storage facility, so you got to pay for it. So now I have to call my insurance people, and I called them and said, what is going on here? This is ridiculous. So now they want to send me down, and the insurance company, they're like, just go handle this. And I'm like, okay. So now they want to send me down, so now I have to go to the bank, and I have to go to get the money, and I have to take it to the impound lot. And so I stopped for a second. I'm like, all right, God, listen, I'm a busy guy. I got a lot going on. And I've already canceled this guy 3 times, now 4 times. And you know my schedule, you know me, all those things. So I'm talking about this, so you really need to handle this, because I'm trusting you and you're on my side. And so I wait for a minute. And guess what happened? Nothing happened. And I gave him a full 60 seconds to get it squared away. I mean, come on, it's Monday. We go in 60-second time allotments, right? So nothing happens for the full minute. So I go in and I start trying to get these things handled. So I call up, and I call the impound lot again. I said, son, explain this to me. I have to bring you, yep, you've got to do this, is what you have to do. We're not releasing it until you do this. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I just don't have time to do all this stuff. And as I'm calling, excuse me, I get a call on the other line, and it's a rental car company. Hey, by the way, did you know that you get a rental car and this is how much you can spend, and all this? And I said, listen, right now I'm trying to figure out how to get this out of the impound, and then I'll call you back. And all these things are mounting. So now I have to go to the rental car company. All these things are taking place, and all of a sudden I realize it's not even 10 a.m. And my entire day has been turned completely upside down. And I've had a couple conversations with God, and God still hasn't stepped in. God, this has been 2.5 hours now. I gave you 60 seconds. And now it's going on 150 minutes, and you still haven't shown up. So as I'm having this other conversation, I look down, and the phone, there's a number coming in, and I don't recognize it. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. I don't want to add anything more to my day. And it's ringing, and it's ringing, and ringing. And finally, I pick it up, and it's the collision place that Allstate, who is my insurance company, called, and hey, they're talking about doing this, and you have to do this and run through this and all that kind of stuff, and I'm saying, okay, stop for a second. Who are we talking about? Because the part I didn't explain to you is that just the week before, my other son hit a deer. And so his car is drivable, and here's the great thing about it. They both drive the exact same car, but they're just different years. So now I'm dealing with one thing from this collision people. I'm dealing with the impound people, dealing with the towing people, dealing with the insurance on both these, dealing with the adjusters on both these, going through all this other kind of stuff. It's like, God, are you paying attention to my mess today? I've got this messy situation that's taking place. I'm going to need some help here. So I get off the phone with them, explain to them what's going on, talking about the impound, going through the whole thing, get back on the phone, and guess what happens? The phone starts ringing again. I'm already annoyed. But I stop long enough to say, all right, God's on my side. All right, God, I'm going to go ahead and click over. And I click over. And the lady on the other end says, listen, can I help you? And I said, yeah, you can help me. And she said, just listen to me for a moment. This is what you're going to do. The way that your insurance company works is that if you will release your car and tell them that you'll release the car, they'll release it to us directly, then we'll handle the tow, and we'll bring it back over, and we'll handle it, and then we'll just bring it to the collision place. I'm like, well, why didn't someone tell me that to begin with? Now, if I'd have called my brother-in-law, he probably could have told me all those other kind of things, but he's got a job, and he's working, and he's got a garage, all those other kind of things as well. But in one phone call, stopped long enough, because I was having this conversation with God, that someone stepped in. Now, God didn't show up on time, did he? Right? He was a good 2 hours and 29 minutes late. And I had a conversation with him about that. We talked about, no, I didn't talk, but it was through that process that we learned that maybe it's not on our time, but man, days can get really messy and out of whack really quickly, can't they? But when we realize God's on our side and we have this conversation with him, even though it doesn't happen on our time frame, God is still in control. And it's us realizing that and getting to that point that can literally not only turn every day around, but if it turns the day around, it can turn the week around, it can turn the month around, the year around, and guess what? It can turn an entire lifetime around if we will allow God to move on his time. So she calls me up. This is all you got to do. I called the impound lady back up. I said, hey, all I got to do is release this. So I'm just releasing this car to you. The collision place is going to call you back, and everything's going to be handled. Are you good with that? And she's like, yeah. And part of me is like, if you knew that, why didn't you tell me, right? Hey, stupid lady. No, I didn't do that, all right? I just said, okay, thank you, and I hung up, and I'm like, all right. And so I moved back to the other one. Boom, they called, and they had it. And literally the lady calls me back up from the collision place, and she was so nice. She goes, hey, just so you know, you and me are now best friends. I said, what? She goes, you and me are now best friends because I got an opportunity to help you out. And she goes, and I love helping out my friends. And then I expected something next to say, you are going to now owe me this back, right? We expect, okay, what do I have to do now to, for us to stay best friends? And then she said this, so I just hope you have a really good day. That was all. Now, just so you know, the adjuster has missed 3 appointments and hasn't been back out, and the car is still in the impound, or I'm sorry, the car is still in the collision place, and I mean, all those other kind of things that happen from it. But in the mess of that day, just from some lady who I've never met, she decided to take just a little bit of time to call and say, if you'll just do this and this and this, it'll get handled. And then she called me back up to say, hey, we're best friends now, and you go have a good day. Isn't that awesome? I don't know if she's a believer. I don't have any idea, but I'll tell you what, she sure showed me some light. And I got to believe that somewhere down deep inside of her, that's God working through her to reach out to me. So God's on our side, so we know that. And yet, tomorrow's Monday. And you know what Monday's going to be? It's going to be a mess. And the next day is going to be Tuesday. You know what Tuesday's going to be? Tuesday's going to be a mess. And then Wednesday and then Thursday and Friday. We'll have all these plans and all these things that we want to do, and this is where I'm supposed to be, and then we're going to look at the calendar and go, I just turned 30, and this is where I should have had, 2 kids and 1.3 dogs and a car, and we go through all this stuff in our mind because we don't rest in God and keep Him at the center of everything we're doing. Because we look at things from a time and a date standpoint, and God looks at us and says, hey, your life, your time here, I've got all this. Would you just trust enough in me that I'm going to deliver? Maybe not exactly when you expect it, but it's going to be just the right time. There was a sickness you didn't expect, and we're like, man, what is going to be the next step? A friend of mine, his sister, that was actually 2 weeks ago, they had put her on life support. And he was going down there, and she was gone. And they knew that she was going to be gone. And so I asked another friend of mine, because they were gone for the week, and he said, guess what? She's off life support. She's fine. She's good. He's back to work. Everything's good to go. I mean, we just don't know. But we've got to be at the point where if we're going to be not self-centered, but God-centered, that we allow God to move on His time, knowing that He is on our side. It still doesn't take us away from the fact that we've got to share these things with God. We've got to talk to Him. And it's okay to share our mess with Him. In fact, in Psalms, these are some of the verses that I'm going to read for you. We're going to start with these today before we go into Psalm 118. This is what some of the psalmists wrote. Psalm 1:1. Blessed is the one who does not walk in step with the wicked, or stand in the way that sinners take, or sit in the company of mockers. I feel like that should be Psalm 10:1. I bet you I gave you a typo. And that's my bad, Jason. Hold on a second. I'm going to read from my Bible. Although that's a really good verse. Psalm 10:1. Hold on. Let me turn to it. Psalm 10:1. Why, O Lord, do you stand far off? Why do you hide yourself in times of trouble? And so we feel like, you know what, God, you're hiding from me. Now's when I need you the most. I'm turning to you. It's times of trouble. Where the heck are you? You know, my marriage is struggling. Where are you? My teenage kids, man, they're going through this stuff that I don't want them to have to go through, that I didn't have to go through when I was a kid, with all this social networking, social media, all that kind of stuff. You know, where are you? Where are you with my grandkids when, you know, I just want them to be around. I just want to have some time with them. I just want to be there. Where are you when I had that loss? What's happening? Because I'm in a time of trouble. I'm in a mess. And I need you to step in. Where are you? This is what the psalmist wrote. The next verse, if you could please, Jason. Psalm 35:23. It says, awake and arise to my defense. Contend for me, my God, my Lord. Come on, listen. Don't you have my back? Shouldn't you be stepping up? With all these people in front of me that are against me, shouldn't you be parting the sky and dropping lightning bolts on each one of them? That'd be really cool. Then they'll know that you're God, and I will too, as long as the lightning misses me. The next one, read the next verse. Watch this. Your arrows have pierced me, and your hand has come down on me. And now it's like, listen, everyone else is getting ahead, and I feel like I'm trying to do the right things, and yet, guess what? I'm the one that's taking the brunt of everything. It's me. Not anyone else. This is only happening to me, and we feel like we're completely alone. And then this next verse. Psalm 44:10. You made us retreat before the enemy, and our adversaries have plundered us. So now, you made us pull back. We did what we thought we were supposed to do, and they're taking everything. Why? I have no idea. Because aren't you God, and aren't you supposed to step in the middle of my mess and show that you are God, so that not only I can see it, but so that everyone else can see it? And God says this, listen, I'm on your side. I've got this. But you and I need to not be so self-centered, and to allow God to move. And in order to do so, it takes us taking a step toward the one who never changes. Psalm 118 is where we're going to start today. And it's going to be in verse 24. Before we dive into that, I'm going to give you two examples from the Bible. And I want you to think a little bit about this mess. So, we're all following Moses, every single one of us. And he's taken us out of Egypt, and we're heading for the promised land that we don't know. Stay with me. We don't know where the promised land is. There's one guy, and he's like, hey, I'm taking you to the promised land. We're like, well, it can't be any worse than what I've got going on here, so good, let's go to the promised land. He never said, oh, it's going to take 40 years. Because if it was going to take 40 years, I don't really feel like walking around the desert for 40 years. I'll take my chances. I've got 3 meals, square meals, and I don't live in a mansion, but at least I've got a roof over my head. Right? He never said that. I'm just taking you to the promised land. Well, okay, great, let's go. We're heading to the promised land. So 40 years, but before it ever happens, oh, by the way, Pharaoh and his army in their chariots and in their shields and with their cool weapons that you have none of, because you're just like in a robe and you might have a stick, to guard yourself. They're chasing us. And they're chasing us not to bring us back, but to kill all of us. And we can hear the rumbling of the chariots. And now we're starting to think, man, why didn't I just stay there? That would have been a good deal. And all of a sudden, we get and boom, there's this huge body of water in front of us. And we have nowhere to go. And we just have a stick. What do? Do we all just surrender? Do we give up? And then all of a sudden, the guy that's leading us, who's taking the promised land, stands before the water, and it splits like this right here between the pews. And we got to make a choice. So what would your choice be? Are you going to take on the chariots, or are you going to walk through the path? Thank God we didn't have to make the choice, right? But what would you do? What would you do? Let's go to the New Testament. It's Friday night. You're in a garden. You've been following this guy for the last few years. You're his disciple. It's dark. It's at a time you shouldn't have to worry about the police coming because you've done nothing wrong. You shouldn't have to worry about anyone snatching anybody up because you've done nothing wrong. In fact, this is a place that's very peaceful. This is a garden where people can relax and people can pray, and we're all together with all these guys that we've always been together. Then all of a sudden, they show up to take the very guy that you've been following. And so they take him away and they put him on trial, in a legal trial. And you ran. You took off. And then the next day, you stood afar off and you watched your very friend, the guy that you believed to be not only your rabbi and not only your teacher, but your Messiah, the one they've been looking for hundreds and hundreds of years, died the most excruciating death known to man on a cross, and he's gone. And all you can do is wait. Because your family's going, hey, that guy that died, what's the story with that? Because he died and he's gone. And now you're in hiding. And you're worried that people are going to know that you're one of his disciples. And so it's Friday night, and then it's all day Saturday. And everyone's still looking for you. And now our family is in turmoil. And we had to stop everything that we were doing. Where is he and what's going on with this? Are we even allowed to go outside? Can we go to the market? Can we do any of those things? And now it's Sunday morning and we still haven't had any word back. What is going on? But see, Friday night when you were in the garden, you didn't plan for that. And Saturday, you didn't plan for that all day. And way back in the Old Testament, when they said we were going to the Promised Land, I thought we were just making a trip to go to some place where there's milk and honey and there's grass and all that kind of stuff. And so God's just going to protect us. And now you've got an entire army chasing me? See, in the Old Testament and the New Testament, they had messy days as well. And they had days that didn't go as planned. And they were forced into a situation to where they had to make a decision. And the decision was this: trust God, or don't trust him. God bless you. And so in the middle of that mess, and in the middle of your mess, you and I make a decision. We make a choice every single day. And it starts with, am I going to have this conversation with God? Am I going to trust enough that in my troubles, in my struggles, regardless of my age, regardless of my sex, regardless of the color of my skin, regardless of whether I have kids or don't have kids, regardless if I screwed things up, regardless if I'm terrible with my finances, whatever it might be, that I believe that in the center of it all, that God is in control. So how do I do that? Psalm 118, the very center, once again, of God's Word is where we're going to be. Starting in verse 24, and it says this. It says, this is the day, verse 24 says, this is the day the Lord has made. So this day, every day when we get up, this is God's day. This is God's day that He put breath in my lungs. This is God's day that He allowed my heart to beat. This is God's day when I can look with my eyes, when I can reach with my hands, when I can drive in my car, when I have children that I've been blessed with, when I have people that are in my life that I don't even know, or the people that are going to be coming to see, whatever it might be. This is the day that the Lord has made. So when I start that day by turning it to God and say, you know what, God? You gave me this day. You made this day. I am here at this time, at this place in history, for whatever reason, you have placed me here. So this is the day that the Lord has made. Let us do what? Rejoice and be glad in it. We get so stuck in our mess and so stuck in our craziness that many times we stop and we never recognize God in it. God, I don't know why this is happening. I don't know what's going on with this. This doesn't make any sense to me. I wouldn't allow this to happen to me because you know what? I'm really cool. I'm a really nice guy. I treat people really well. So why are people treating me poorly? And why are people looking down on me? Why people think because of my faith that I should be, perfect and all those other kind of things? We throw all these things at God. But we don't stop long enough to rejoice in the fact that this day is His and He has made it for me. So I'm going to start this day and the next day and the next day by recognizing God and speaking to Him and saying, this is your day and you made it. Mark 1 verse 35, this is what it says here. Very early in the morning, while it was still dark, Jesus got up, left the house, and went off to a solitary place where He prayed. Too many times we end our day with God and we don't start with Him. Now, I'm going to challenge you here just a little bit. When you get up in the morning, at some point in some time, you get ready. So if you get up and get ready every morning, and for some of us it's quick. It's like brush your teeth, throw on a hat, put some pants on and a shirt on and some shoes. Hope they match. If they don't, that's okay. I'm a guy, right? Ladies, it's a little bit different. You're going to get up and, there's a process, right? Right? I've talked to I'm coaching basketball and I've talked to some of the gals and they've told me this before. I need to be up at this time, so I can be ready for here. And I'm like, okay, hold on a second. What time's school start? They're like, I'll just throw a time out there. 8 o'clock. So if you have to get up at 8, ladies, what time do you need to get up in the morning if you're leaving at 7:45 to be ready? And some are like, 7. And some of you laugh at that. You're like 6:30. And some of you are like 4 a.m. I have to get up at 4 a.m. to be ready at 7:45. And listen, if you're a guy, and if you got to leave by 7:45, you're like, okay, 2 minutes to brush my teeth, which is really like 30 seconds. As long as I know where my hat is, 14 seconds. And if I can grab a pair of pants, a pair of shoes, and a shirt, regardless of whether or not they match, another 18 seconds. So I can get up at 7:43 and 27 seconds and still be out the door and be good, right? But we still have that time. We start that by having a conversation with God. You're putting on and I don't know what all the names of the makeup are. My wife and daughter, they talk about it. We got to go get mascara and eyeliner and blush and that kind of stuff, right? So I know eyeliner's got to be in the eye. So let's say you're putting your eyeliner on. Or can you have a conversation with God, right? If you're, for some reason, women that have curly hair, what do you got to do? You got to straighten it. You have curly hair. All the girls that have curly hair or straight hair, they're like, I wish I had the curly hair. All the girls that have curly hair are like, I wish I had straight hair. So for whatever reason, we go the opposite way. While you're doing that with your hair, are you having a conversation with God? Start your day with God. And see, we see Jesus giving the example. He went off to a solitary place to have a conversation with God. And we think it's got to be, in the closet, in a prayer room, whatever it might be. And it can be. It absolutely can be. But it's taking that time to say, God, I can open my eyes and see myself in the mirror. Maybe I don't like what I see yet, but man, in an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours, I'm going to be looking good. I'm going to be heading off. Have a conversation. With guys, we get in our car and the first thing we do, the radio's on. It's on 37 when it should be on 4. Turn that radio off. Have a conversation with God in that drive. Start your day with God. The very same God who is on your side. It makes a complete difference. Because now when the crash happens, or now when the schedule changes, or now when the phone call comes in, I'm already walking with Him. And I start to become God-centered and not self-centered. The psalm continues, and he says this. It says, "Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. From the house of the Lord we bless you." Blessed is he who comes... I missed a part. I'm sorry. Verse 25. It says, "O Lord, save us. O Lord, grant us success." So save us from this. Save us from this mess I'm in. Save me from the struggle. Save me from my schedule. Save me from my busyness. Save me from conflict. Save me from this confrontation. Save me from complacency, from doubt, from whatever it is that rises up. Anger, all those things. Save me from this. And then he says this, "And grant me success." What's success in your mind? What's success in your life? And for many of us, you know what success is? I got my way. I got it when I wanted it. Everything was fine for me. I'm pretty much good. I know some other people had struggles, but hey, my day was just fine. And it was all good. And I'm happy. For others, success is, hey, I got the big promotion. I got the bigger car. I got the whatever it might be. For success, some of us, is just making it through the day. The success was I dealt with this bout of loneliness. And God got me through the day. I was completely discouraged, and the Lord picked me up enough through the day. In God's eyes, that success is when you turn to Him enough and say, "Save me from this." And then I asked for success so that at the end of the day I could say, "God, I did it your way." And in God's eyes, if we're going to put our trust in the Lord and not in man, which many times is ourselves, that is success in God's eyes. That I rested in Him and through Him. I realized He's on my side. I got out of who I am and where I am, and in the entire mess of everything, I rested and recognized God. And that's a success. "O Lord, save us. O Lord, grant me success. Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. From the house of the Lord we bless you. From the house of the Lord we bless you." Verse 27. It says, "The Lord is God, and He has made His light shine upon us." We're going to stop here for a second. Many times when we see the word light, we just think of this big flashing light, right? I mean, we just think like we're blinded by it, the light that blinded Paul. For some of you, when it's light, it could be the sun, which is out today, and we don't see that all the time in Ohio. But we picture this huge, bright light that's just blinding to us. And we don't realize it as a believer, that if we are that light in this world, that the very light that people need to see isn't from an object, it's from a person. And so, through that light, we have hope. When it's been cloudy for 6 days and all of a sudden the sunshine comes out, it does something to us, naturally. But it kind of brings a little bit of hope. If it's completely dark and a light pierces through that, it brings hope. And as a believer, and as someone who is walking as a child of God, when we take this away from ourselves and about someone else, you may be the very light. You may be the very hope for someone else in a dark day. Here's what these verses say. This is Psalm 119, 105. Look what this says. It says, 119, 105, it says, "Your word is a lamp for my feet and a light on my path." So it guides me through the day. So literally every step that I take, that light is before me on the path that I'm going to take. It doesn't say the path is straight. Right? Moses taking them to the promised land. Hey, we're going to the promised land. Great. We just figured it's just a walk across the road. It was a 40-day wander. Jesus is going to be the light of the world. And all of a sudden, boom, He was gone. And all these disciples are going, what's going to happen? Because in the darkness of the night, He was taken. And yet, He came back 3 days later and cast that light upon everyone. Watch this next verse. "The Lord is my light and my salvation." Goes back as far as being saved. He is my light and my salvation. He is my hope and my salvation. No matter the mess, no matter the struggle, no matter what's going on inside your heart right now, no matter the darkness that you know that you have, no matter the past thing that you just want to fix, God will bring that hope to it, and He will save you from it. And many times, what we most need saved from are ourselves. our selfishness, our self-centeredness. The Lord is my light and my salvation. It says, whom shall I fear? If you know this, if you believe this, if you rest in this, if you trust in this, if you walk in this, as I walk that path and I have that light and I'm bringing that hope, what do you have to be afraid of? I've got this emptiness in my life. Have you given it to God? Have you turned it over to Him repeatedly? But the path should be from here to here. Well, you might have to wind back and forth a couple times and then get there, because there's more that I have to show you. But will you trust me enough to light that path along the way? You have nothing to fear. The Lord is the stronghold of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? We have to fear no one, or we don't have to fear anyone or anything, because that's what God's light shining through us does. It brings hope now and for eternity. And as believers, that means that you and I bring hope now and for eternity. One of the things I'm really blessed with for this season of my life is I'm the assistant to the assistant basketball coach for high school for the girls. Now, part of the reason I think that I'm that is because I grew up with 6 sisters. For you who don't know, I came from a small Catholic family of 10. I had 6 sisters. And so I think dealing with all the different ages and, things that they're going through as far in life, and they probably, maybe they think it'll help. I don't know. I tell myself that. These young ladies want to do nothing but succeed. But success for each one of them is different. For some of them, success is our team won. For success, some of them is I'm actually going to play quality minutes this year on whatever team. For some of them, though, it gets even more granular. And to the point where, if I don't score, I'm not successful. And so I have to do whatever I can to score to be on the floor. And for others, it's still, if I just work as hard as I can, that others will notice. But each day it's a different battle for each one of them. And as a coach, I have to recognize that for each one of them. And the thing that breaks my heart the most is when they get stuck in one thing or stuck on one thing that they can't get past. Because we can't move on together until they can recognize this is what their struggle is now. So I just had a conversation with 3 of them yesterday, and each one of them a little bit different. But basically the conversation went with this. What is it that you see as success? I have to do this, and if I'm not doing this, then I'm not successful. And by the way, this is even taking place during the game. And I didn't do this. Okay, but you did these 2 other things instead that cause your team to succeed. So now I have 2 and you have 1. Who's winning? And they laugh at me. But I try to get them back on the floor so they can get to that point of succeeding. But then after the game, I'll pull them aside. So talk to me. Did you feel better after that? Yes, I did, but I still didn't succeed because of this thing that I held on to. And so see, in our walk, that's many times what stops us from moving to the next step with God. My experience, because I'm older, because hopefully I'm a little wiser than a teenage girl, is to help them to see that you still succeeded because you helped everyone else around you succeed. But even when they get stuck in it, I have to go back to help them get through that moment so they can move. Because if we don't, the next game and the next practice and the next game, they're going to keep going back to that same thing. Now here's the thing. Someone else put that in their mind. Someone else over time has done it, or they have taken it and they have seen it with others and they've decided that's what's going to make me successful. So you and I have to define what success is. God bless you. But if you are someone of experience as a believer, it's you who has to make that choice to say, listen, you're back here, I'm going to stop long enough until we can move forward together. Yeah, we're going to still have practices, we're going to still have scrimmages, there's going to still be games. But know this, to get to the point of being successful, we're going to walk alongside of this together until you can see that you're succeeding in so many areas, and God's in control of that. Folks, as believers, someone who isn't a believer can't understand that. They don't even think about eternity. they're within that day, and did I get my way, and did I get whatever as I wanted, that's where they're going to be. Because that's what they've been told. And that's what the world has shown them. And that's what they've seen through everyone else. And they're missing the very light of God. And they're missing the very hope of salvation. And they're missing the very promise that God has for you and for me that we know we have. When we know that God is on our side. And we trust that God is in control. These last verses finish up this way, and it says this. The Lord is our God, verse 27, Psalm 118. He has made His light shine upon us with boughs in hand, joining the festal procession up to the horns of the altar. We'll stop here for a second, because all of a sudden they're like, hey, all this stuff is great, but what are you talking about? What is going on here? I want you to understand this verse. What's going on is that the boughs are the branches from a tree. Sometimes it's the main branch of the tree. And so at the time of sacrifice, there's horns that are on the altar, and they're on the four sides, wherever the blood offering was made in the sacrifice for the altar in the Old Testament. And so you would bring your different sticks to bring those offerings so that you could put those on the table or on the altar. And because of that, after they were delivered, they have what's known as a Feast of Tabernacles, where they would use these different branches for shelter. So what they're bringing is for protection and for shelter at the time of sacrifice. But see, this time moved past and has since gone, because that shelter and protection we have is through the very one that hung on that tree, who hung on those two limbs that crossed, who was that ultimate sacrifice for you and for me. This was pointing to it. And watch what takes place from the people from the Old Testament in the very next verse, in verse 28. He says this, he says, "You are my God, and I will give you thanks." Why? Once again, you are my God, and I will exalt you. And the last part is a reminder. Give thanks to the Lord, for He is good. His love endures Monday and Tuesday, the 15th and the 22nd, Christmas Eve and Christmas and Easter. Forever. His love endures forever. And it starts this day. And it continues tomorrow and the day after and the day after and the day after. So if you want to be someone that is going to recognize God within it, first realize this: God's on your side. He's always meant to be on your side. And as a believer, it's up to us to have a conversation with Him daily and to start our day with Him. When we're getting ready, when we're in our drive, whenever it might be, so that we realize that through the day, through the mess, through the struggles, through the things we're trying to fix, that He is right there with us. And as we go through the day, we can know that He is our light and He is our hope, and that we can also be that light and that hope for others. And at the end of the day, we have this opportunity to give thanks and to realize that we're blessed. And to say, thanks, God, because this day I recognized You. And tomorrow I'm going to start over. Allow me to be that light and allow me to be that hope. No matter what happens to my day and how it gets changed, allow me to see You first through every moment of the day, starting on this day. Would you all bow your heads, please, and close your eyes and say a word of prayer. Lord, we all face big challenges. Some of them are big and some of them are small. Some just seemingly out of control, and the key word is seemingly. Lord, if we will stay centered upon You and centered upon Your Word and realize that You are on our side, Lord, we can celebrate every single day with You. We can start with You. We can ask You, Lord, to just guide our heart and to know that Your light and Your hope works through us, and that same light and hope that You pour through us, that we can pour through others. But God, in the end, Lord, help us to realize that Your love endures forever. Help us to give thanks because of it, and help us to stay focused upon You in everything we say and everything we do. Would you all stand so we can close with this worship song?